What does gutsy mean to you, Miss Heather?
Gutsy to me means being brave, to go out to dare greatly, as Brene Brown would say, and to be willing to do what it takes to create a life you love and be comfortable being uncomfortable. Even though probably 90% of the population is going to not be on the same journey as you, maybe try and pull you down, and you might have to carve out your own road. It's going to require serious guts and willingness to create that life you love. And so for me, it really means being brave and willing to do what it takes to create a life you love.
Welcome to the Gutsy Podcast, the show where you learn how to own what you actually want and shift the mind junk that's been holding you back. I'm Laura Ora, keynote speaker, coach, and your guide to help you get clarity, build confidence, and make the gutsy moves that change your life. Each week, I'm going to help you simplify things by teaching you how to get out of your head while stepping into action. This way you can achieve all those life shifts that you've been overthinking. Your desire, that drives you. But gutsy, that's what gets it done. Have you ever been in a situation where you know what you want, you're doing all the things to get it, and just as soon as you feel a breakthrough coming, something happens and knocks you off your game? It's frustrating because it sends you back into this cycle of wishing and wondering and waiting. So let's change that. Today, we're talking with Heather Lee Chapman about breaking through that upper limit so that you can start to achieve your goals with deep, deep fulfillment. Heather is a holistic high-performance coach for conscious business owners and the owner and creative director of Own It Empire. She helps people become the best versions of themselves through self and business mastery coaching, with her online programs and one-to-one mentorship. With over 17 years of experience in human potential and performance, plus 12 years of coaching, Heather guides individuals to achieve their goals. She is an NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnotherapy practitioner. She's also a certified nutritional practitioner and the co-author of 2 Amazon #1 bestsellers. Listen, Heather knows how to get in there and help you get it done. Like Heather, I am deeply passionate about helping women to get out of their own way, own what they actually want, and to take steps to move forward. I also know that your brain gets in the way and tries to talk you out of all your great ideas before you even get started. I've put together a very simple method called the Power Back process that's going to teach you how to catch and shift those thoughts in the moment. And why is in the moment important? Because now we're not going down this whole rabbit hole, questioning yourself, overthinking, wondering if I can do this. And the best part is you can use this method for any situation in any location. I've used this standing in the grocery store line waiting to check out. So if you're tired of your thoughts running amok and taking over, go to lauraora.com/foundations, put in your email, and I'll send you this free process right away. Heather has such rich, intuitive information to share with you. So let's get into today's episode. Hello, Miss Heather. Welcome to the Gutsy Podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. So grateful to be here today.
Yeah, long time coming. So fun fact, I had an opportunity to be on your show, the Own It show, back in 23, and we connected. I don't know, I feel like it was fall 2023, and we've just stayed in touch ever since then. And here we are full circle. So thanks for being on my show this time.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. It was so good to have you on the show, and I couldn't wait to come on your show.
I'll link it in the show notes, by the way, if you guys want to listen to that. It's always nice to hear who's behind the mic on which side. I just think it provides such a cool perspective shift.
Absolutely.
So, Miss Heather, I know that everyone has had a journey to get to where they are today. So talk to us a little bit about yours. What has led you to where you are right now?
Well, it has definitely been a journey. I will say that for sure. And I say entrepreneurship is a journey. It's really not a destination. But I've also been on my own health and healing journey at the same time. So I graduated as a kinesiologist and then became a personal trainer and certified nutritional practitioner. And then while I was in school, I actually got a concussion and took a break from school and realized that people truly weren't being treated like a whole. mind, body, soul, and spirit. And so I went into working with brain and spinal cord injuries after my concussion, and absolutely loved it, and really got to help people recreate their lives while I was recreating mine and healing. And along that way, I did finish nutrition school and then had a disc injury. And I was having a really hard time healing it and just refused to accept that that was going to be my quality of life. And decided to look into some advanced spiritual training because I was doing all the practical things, all the regular things, had all the practitioners, and introduced theta healing and 3 days of theta healing meditation. And I healed my back and was running again when doing things and weights that I hadn't been able to do in 3 years. And that just like blew my mind. If it hadn't happened to me, I might not believe it. But the mind really is a powerful tool. And at that point, I'd been an entrepreneur for almost a decade and coaching people in person. And I really wanted to go virtually. I was doing 7 days a week, 18-hour days, 3 businesses, 3 contracts, volunteering. I had no more time to trade. I was constantly in burnout mode. And every time I would almost break my income glass ceiling or something else would be like that next great opportunity, something would always come in to bring me back, whether it's a concussion or a disc injury, or then it was a car accident, head butted by a horse, like you name it.
Oh
And
my goodness.
and we can talk about that later in the self-image and why those things happen. And so that really led me into diving deep into studying the mind and human conditioning, performance, and behavior. I had studied at Landmark Worldwide for a few years and had understood the key principles of NLP and wanted to go, which is neuro-linguistics programming, neuro and language programming. So how we're programmed via the language we use to describe our world and the model of the world we grow up in. And so when I started to dive deeper into that and understanding that we have a conditioned blueprint that we've been creating throughout our life, and it kind of becomes our box and glass ceiling. And then unless we change that in the unconscious mind, we keep hitting that glass ceiling. And for me, that looked like car accident, concussion, all the physical injuries all the time, which was also really, really great in a way that it taught me to get out of a business model of trade your time for money. Because with the last injury, I had to give up half my practice. And so just as we were breaking that 6-figure glass ceiling there, insert something that came in to draw me back. And that was the last time that was going to happen. So I studied in depth with Bob Proctor. And then I'm now NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnotherapy designated as well. And I would say doing the course, I wanted to do it not just for me, but to help the transformation of my clients in self and business mastery. Because the biggest thing I found with my clients is we are our upper limit. And if we don't work on us, we're our glass ceiling in our business. And so I've been coaching business owners online now for 5 years, and I absolutely love it. And I'm so grateful to be able to help conscious entrepreneurs get out of their own way, step into the light, shine their light, and hold the space for the people who are in alignment with them to also shine their light. And the biggest thing for me is those entrepreneurs are putting people and planet over profit, and they stand for unity consciousness. And for me, that means we all win and what's in the highest good of all involved. And so I get the opportunity to now help other people smash that glass ceiling and leave that legacy of love.
Oh, amazing. And can one assume that you have now broken that glass ceiling of yours? You've moved on and forward?
Yes, and it took many years, thank goodness. But yes, we broke it over and over again, and I'm really grateful now to be an online coach, author, and speaker.
That's phenomenal. So you mentioned how like these things kept occurring right when you were about to break through, right? And I know that that's really freaking relatable. So I want to dig into that a little bit more. What's happening when that's happening? Like why is that reoccurring? Why is that continuously showing up when you're about to like do your thing and then it feels like everything bottoms out around you?
Well, there's 2 things. One is here, there's a starting point of where you are, and then there's the goal of where you want to go. And when you go to jump to get that goal, you haven't built the neurology, the version of you, the thoughts, the actions, the habits that can actually attain it and then maintain it. So we have to enter what they call the putrefaction process, or I call it the transformation tornado, which is more of what it feels
It's
like.
very relatable.
Yeah. And it's a breakdown process. So it's really breaking down the old version of you that no longer serves you so that you can get to that other side. And when you're trying to get to that other side, there's a little set point, an unconscious set point of your self-image, of what you believe is possible for you, what you believe you're worth, how much you can earn. And with that, that's that glass ceiling that we keep bouncing off of. So I want to get to the goal that's on the other side of that set point, and yet I just keep hitting that set point and attracting people, places, circumstances, and opportunities to bring me back to what that internal unconscious self-image set point is. And so that's why I kept attracting those experiences, because I knew I wanted this big dream, yet unconsciously didn't believe that was possible for me. There's a really great book called Psycho-Cybernetics. And so it's the cybernetic mechanism, just like in an airplane, that's on autopilot. It's off course 98% of the time, but it's always making micro adjustments and it will always land at its destination. Just think of, you want to go to Florida, but you keep ending up in Toronto because your unconscious set points in Toronto. And so most of the time you're like, oh, on the way to Florida, yet somehow you always end up back in Toronto. And that's because that set point will have you have thoughts, feelings, actions, and behaviors of what we call secondary gain. The behavior will validate the limiting belief. See, I told you you're not good enough. So maybe you have an event and you want to have 300 registrants, and you know these actions you need to do to get those registrants, but instead you don't do any of them because insert whatever the limiting belief is. You say you don't have time, but really you don't believe you're worthy of serving those people or that you're capable of doing it. And so we'll have the behaviors, which will cause a secondary gain. Say, see, told you you're not worthy. See, you can't do it. And that is a cycle that most people will go through their entire life who are trying to go beyond where they are now. And it just keeps happening over and over again. And so changing that internal set point, changing that self-image is a game changer. So Psycho-Cybernetics is a really great book that explains it. He was a plastic surgeon, and so he would wonder why one person could come in and get surgery and be happy and it would change the rest of their life, but somebody else was on their 20th surgery and still didn't love themselves. And it all has to do with that unconscious self-image set point and our belief systems that we gathered as we grew up. And everyone did the best with what they had, and we're grateful for that. And now it's up to us to make a change so that we can create life by design instead of default.
And that's why you call it a tornado, because it's a hot mess in there.
It is.
Right? It's messy work. It's new, it's unfamiliar, it's uncomfortable. You're consistently putting yourself in situations where you're like, I don't want to do this, right? Like it, but what's the alternative? Right?
Going backwards.
Exactly. And so it's like, are you going to lean in and do this work? Or are you going to continue to stay in the place that you are so desperately trying to get away or out of?
Yeah.
And it's easy to claim that out loud, but it's in that work, right? It's changing that set point. And so I'm curious, what are some things that you recommend to start changing that set point so that we're not consistently hitting that ceiling?
Well, the first, what Bob and I discussed, Bob Proctor, was to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because when I asked him, like, is there any way to make this easier? Because once you make a new set point, you get it, and then you're going to want another goal. So you got to change again. So it's a consistent practice. And at 86, he was still doing this. And so really the first thing is just getting comfortable being uncomfortable and knowing that your best life lies outside your comfort zone. And the next is, it's something that we work on inside our programs, but also teach in our Own It Masterclass, is making a self-image script. And so auto-suggestion is the spaced repetition of an idea or thought over time. And so we've been auto-suggested our entire life, these limiting beliefs. And so now we want to override them. And so we can do that by repeating affirmations. And so I like to use just a simple reframing exercise as when we hear the limiting beliefs or that negative self-talk, you just say, what would I prefer? And then you flip to, so if it's like, I'm not worthy, it's I am worthy. I can't do it. I can do it. And constantly changing that thought pattern. And it requires you to be present and aware and hear the limiting beliefs and be in the now, which is a beautiful place to be. And so when you can hear what the limiting beliefs are saying, you can get the new beliefs and just grab the contrast of what you prefer and start repeating that to yourself. I've recorded affirmations I listen to every day. I write affirmations every day. I read them as well. And then when I went into my timeline therapy designation, it blew my mind because it uses like a hypnotic rhythm that allows us to get you into a relaxed state to actually access the unconscious mind and do belief switching. And before we're even allowed to do the belief switching, we actually work with negative emotions. So we're often addicted to a key negative emotion, whether it's guilt or shame. And so we often unconsciously co-create experiences to have us stay in that emotion over and over again. So the first thing we actually do is work with the negative emotions and clear those. And we get what is called the positive learnings. Because say there was you and your sister and you were younger and you were both there and your mom went to your sister first for whatever reason or grabbed her for whatever, and you give it a meaning. Well, I'm not as good as her. What, you're 2 years old, you don't know, right? You give it a meaning. And now that starts to become a new command you give to yourself. I'm not that good. Right. And that becomes over time this new belief, which we start to act as if that way. And we create the opportunities and experiences to validate, see, we're not good. So we actually need to go into that unconscious mind, identify the limiting belief first, and then get what we're supposed to be the positive learnings from it. So we can get out of the trauma cycle and switch that belief. And then we bring you back onto the present, and there's great opportunities then, because when we clear things in the unconscious mind, it allows more things to come up to be cleared. We were speaking about that earlier, about the layers of the onion. So it allows us to start to take those layers of the onion away to really get down to because we have a blueprint of the highest version of us, perfect health, everything in our deep unconscious mind. We just have so much that's been built up around it. And we need to just start peeling back those layers so we can be our truest, best, and authentic selves.
I love it. I love this work. I love this topic. It's fascinating, right? Like our brains are fascinating because we literally have the ability to change just about everything in our world, right?
Yeah.
But it takes that intention. I think that a big reason why people don't go down this path is because it is uncomfortable and it's new and it just supports everything that you just said, right? It's familiar. Your subconscious mind wants to do what's familiar to it. And if discomfort is familiar, even if you don't want the discomfort, you're going to continue doing things that make you uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And it keeps you in that cycle. So, there has to be a willingness to get messy and to step into that tornado, because when you do, you have the ability to change your world, right? Like you've smashed your ceiling multiple times at this point. You've healed your mind and your body, right? It's not to say that things don't come up and that we are like those things are gone, right? I think that's another big misconception is like, oh, I've done all the healing, I should be done with this.
No such thing. There's
No
always
such thing.
layer.
It's so complex, but I always talk to my students and clients like it's not about getting rid of it, it's about being better equipped to handle it when it does show up. And so these things that used to drive you now are more like a passing feeling versus something that just takes you down and out for days or weeks at a time.
Absolutely. And takes us to being unconscious, where we start to create drama in our life. And so anytime there's any sense of drama rolling my way, I'm like, oh, we've been unconscious for a while. It's time to check back in, time to do the breath work, the meditation, and just really bringing yourself back into the presence and in the now. And one of my favorite books is The Power of Now. And the magic is happening in the now. And on that healing journey, when you're in the now, things will come up. And I think that's why some people don't want to be in the now, because we've taken experiences, emotions, refused to feel them, didn't know how to feel them. We've put them in boxes. We've got a whole Tetris game going on inside there. And what we need to do is start to unpack the boxes and unravel it. And the first step is awareness. I'm aware that there's something I want to change, or I need to change, or I want something different. And then the willingness to unpack it. And then the willingness to be resilient through that transformation, because it's going to require you to break down to build back up, really. And it's a lifelong journey.
Do you ever get a new idea and at first you are pumped? You're so excited to lean into this and try it, and your vision for it is huge. And then seemingly out of nowhere, you just get hit with this wave of overthinking and worry and what if and can I, and people have already done this before me. And before you know it, those thoughts, they talk you out of that great idea before you even get started. Look, I have played this game with myself more times than I care to count. So many, in fact, that I created a process so that I wouldn't stop myself anymore. And it's worked so well that I turned it into a free audio series to teach you the same method. If you go to lauraora.com/foundations, I'm going to teach you the very simple method that you can use in the car, standing in line, going to the office, or sitting on your couch at home. It's an incredibly practical solution so that you can catch those thoughts in the moment and make the shift so that you can do the things that you truly want to do. Grab it for free. It's lauraora.com/foundations. It sure is. How would one know? Are there any cues or ways that people can know if they're operating from a conscious standpoint versus an unconscious standpoint?
Well, when you're conscious, you're really co-creating, and you set intentions earlier. So when we're conscious, we're setting our intentions. And for me, things work with flow and ease. And so when I know I'm conscious, I'm having conscious thoughts about what I want in a positive way. The right people, places, circumstances, and opportunities come my way. If there was a car accident, I ended up having to leave 5 minutes late, and you missed it, right? Like, it's those kind of things where everything just seems like it's working out for you. And when there's that resistance and everything's really hard and it's not working, that's when we've kind of gone on the unconscious mode, and we're not aware that most of those thoughts are then negative. And we're actually unconsciously co-creating the negative experiences. Most people's thoughts, 80%, are conditioned to be negative, unfortunately. And so it really is a conscious effort to observe the thoughts instead of getting involved with them, and deciding what thoughts we want to get involved in. So, I'm not feeling good. Well, that must mean I'm not thinking good thoughts. So I've been involved with the wrong thoughts. So instead, I'm going to observe the thoughts and decide what I would prefer, and focus more back on that. And I believe it was in The Power of Now that he says, when you're trapped in drama in your life, you've gone unconscious. And a lot of people might spend their whole life like that, on autopilot. 98% of our thoughts, feelings, and actions are habitually unconscious from that belief system. And so what we need to do is start to be a conscious co-creator and make the conscious effort to be in the now, observe the thoughts. You can say, put your order into the universe, or set your intentions. And the law of observation works with quantum physics. And so we know a particle is actually a wave of light unless observed. So we know that when we observe things, we have an expectation on them, or we're setting an intention towards them, and it actually impacts the behavior of the particles. And so we know that when we can consciously set our intentions, we can actually have an impact on the results. And so if we're not getting the results that we want, it means we're usually on that unconscious and we're looking at what we want from not having it. There's a different big shift between thinking about what you want from the state of already having it and thinking about what you want from the state of seeking it or lack, that I don't have it yet.
Yeah. Let's dig into that. Can we dig into that?
Absolutely.
Because I think that's really, really key there. Is like it to me, what that feels like is saying that you want something, but there's a part of you that doesn't believe it's possible. And so there ends up being this loop, this cycle where you keep, running into those situations where it's not working out. So how do you switch? What do you do, or what do you recommend to your clients to switch to look at it from a place not of lack, but of belief and opportunity instead?
I always like to go to gratitude. Gratitude changes everything. We say you're either on your hero story or your victim journey. And so if we're stuck in that negative loophole, we're having a victim story. And so we can't be grateful and complaining and being a victim at the same time. So for me, everything, it's just like you're not feeling good, go ground yourself in the grass and say some gratitude. What are you grateful for today? And so the first thing you can do is look at whatever area of your life that's not working. There's a lack of gratitude there. We've been looking at that area and behaving in that area from a lack perspective. And so we want to think about what we desire. There's like this magical balance between letting go of the past, being in the present in the spirit of the goal achieved, so acting as if, and not being now, but upset that we're not there yet. And so what most of the time we might be saying, well, I think about my goal all the time, but we're thinking about that we don't have it yet. Where is it? How come it's not here yet? What have I done I don't deserve, that maybe I don't deserve it? And we're usually looking at it from seeking and lack. And so Neville Goddard has a great book, The Power of Awareness. And Thomas Terrari teaches on entering the spirit of it. And so you don't see an athlete show up at a race with one shoe on, smoking a cigarette, doing its thing, right? Like they've already won in their mind with a thought coach millions of times. They practice mental rehearsal. And so when they go and they stand on that line, they're already in their mind, they've already won. And so it's how do we in our mind know we've already won and start to be that person today instead of someday. Most people say, when I get this, then I'll. And that's actually reverse engineering. You start to attract more of what you don't want. And so what you need, or reverse manifesting, excuse me. So what you need to do is ask yourself, okay, so if I already had that goal, what would be different? How would I be different? What would it allow for me? How would I show up differently in this world? What behaviors might be different? What thoughts might be different? And then you start acting as that person now. And because we act as if it now, we then attract the people, places, circumstances, and opportunities to help co-create it. But most people say, well, I'll give up the bad habits when I get the money, or I'll get rid of those bad friends when I get new friends. Well, the new friends aren't coming until you release the toxic relationships because there's no space in your life for it. So to really make that shift, it's all about the imagination, being in the spirit of the goal achieved. And we've learned a lot of this from Bob Proctor, and there's a book called by Stella Adler, The Art of Acting. And it's method acting. And so it's, you imagine this character, this version of you with your goal achieved, and then you want to start entering the state of the goal achieved. So you know what the goal is, but then the state is being able to be in the feeling of it already. And so would you have that thought? Would you have that feeling? Would you take that action? Would you hang out with that person? Would you allow yourself to be in that environment? Would you allow that behavior from yourself or from others? If the goal was already achieved, and if the answer is no, then it means you're just getting more of the same. And I think for most people, that's the hardest part, because it is a conscious effort all day long, to be in the now and to be in the spirit of the goal achieved, because most of us are in stories in our mind all the time about all the things in the past. We're having arguments with Joe, Frank, and Sally, and in our mind, yet none of it's real. And we just are constantly like having a party in there, yet it's not the party that is going to help breed the results that you're looking for. So instead, we want to just practice getting out of the stories, back into the present, and back into what it would feel like if you already had that goal achieved. And Entering the Spirit of It by Thomas Terrard, you can listen to on YouTube. And I highly recommend that over and over again, because that'll help a lot to remind you that it's not just in the mechanics, you can do, but it's actually more in the being that will help you co-create what you desire.
That's a great reminder. And it's over and over and over again. That's why they call it the work.
Yes.
Because, I know firsthand how challenging it can be when your physical current day world is not matching that vision, that vibrancy, that expansiveness that you can see and even feel, right? It's frustrating as hell when you're doing all the things and your world's not matching up to it yet. But you're reminding us here today that those are the moments where you have to recognize that and then get back into that spirit of that higher purpose, of that vision, of that goal, because then you're going to act from that goal space versus from the lack space.
Absolutely. Yes.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. And it's a game changer.
It is. And I think it's one of those things too that I think helps you like keep going, right? Because I don't know, it can just get really defeating sometimes. It can get really lonely. And I'm also a huge fan of saying, feel what you need to feel, right? Like it's not always about plowing through things. Like yes. If you need a good ugly breakdown, like have a good ugly breakdown. Like that's okay. That's not going to take you away from your goal. That's honoring your human self. But I think it's exercises like this that helps you to get back up out of bed, to get back on the laptop, to get back out, in your car or whatever you're doing, to reconnect with that and to really truly believe that it's possible because it's already done.
Yes. I believe it's possible because it's already done, and everything is omnipresent. And so if you've thought about it, you've already manifested it in the ether, and now you just need to manifest it in the physical. And so we need to pull it from the ether. In order to do that, we have to be in a harmony with the frequency of it. So our current frequency is in alignment with what we've already have in our life, and we have to reach a different frequency to attract that new goal. The law of cause and effect, the law of all laws, says that we're either being the cause or we're at cause. And so when we're taking full responsibility for our current results, we want to do it from being the cause and say, hey, there's no make wrong. It just is what it is. It's where my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions have been previously, and that's okay. Nothing's good or bad or right or wrong except for what you make it. Because I think that's the hardest part, is then we start to make ourselves so bad and wrong that then we get stuck in a pity party and we start to go down a rabbit hole. So we observe, we can choose what meaning we give to it, and just know everything's working out for you. Everything is happening in divine right timing. Everything is happening the way it's meant to be. And you might not know now. Steve Jobs said you can only connect the dots looking backward, not forward. Right? So there's many lessons you may need to learn, and you don't know why now, and you'll know later. And so when we can be the cause and say, hey, I've created this, now I can change it. That's owning that hero's journey. When we're at cause, we're in blame. Well, it's the economy. Well, it's this person. It's that. It's just this. And there's no power there. And that's where transformation starts to become really hard, because we're giving our power to external things. And so when we can take that power back and decide we are the cause that is causing the effect, nothing's good or bad or right or wrong, it just is what it is, then we can start to make the steps forward in that transformation. And I think for like, it's really important to note that everyone's going to go through transformations and they're going to have ups and downs and highs and lows. And that's part of the human experience. And when I first started working with the law of attraction as a teenager, I thought like you couldn't feel your feelings because that would be anything negative. But if you don't feel them and allow them to process and move along, they stay in there.
That's very true.
Yeah, and it actually pops up later like a dragon instead of like a baby duck or something. And so it comes back tenfold. So it's allowing yourself to feel the feelings, know you're being the effect, and everything just is what it is, but it's okay to allow what you need to feel. If you need a 30-second pity party, go for it. And then just let your vision, and be in a state of possibility that everything can be just the way you want it to be. And then start to really take your power back, be the cause, and go get an inspired action. And Abraham Hicks talks about it as like an emotional ladder, right? You might be down here and depressed and need to get up here to joy. And you're not going to jump there in a moment's time. And it's just allowing yourself. And as long as you start to feel better and better and better, you're moving up that ladder and closer to the frequency that your goal is on.
Amazing. Such great information, great reminders. And I think just so empowering to know that we have the ability to make those shifts ourselves. That we have access to everything that we need, that, we're divinely supported. And there are great people like you and I and so many others out there that believe in people's abilities to have and do what they really, really want. So I would love to make sure that everyone knows where they can get in touch with you. And I think that you've got a special offer to share with them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are on almost all social channels, but the best place to connect with us is on our website, ownitempire.com. And on there is our free gift, and it is a habit tracker. It's a customizable success habit tracker where we give you a template. And I always like to say, I know, ooh, a habit tracker is sexy, like so much fun, right? And your beliefs show up in your habits. So change your habits and change your life. And so just pick 2 new habits at a time, because when you try to change everything, it's way too much. So pick a couple at a time, and whatever you track improves. And so when you start to use a habit tracker, I've been using it for years, and I know when I'm not using it, things are not as good. And there's no make wrong. Every day you do your best, and your best is enough. You're just simply doing it so you can constantly improve and actually build new habits instead of force them for 21 days like most people do and then resort back to the same thing over and over again. So it's actually 60 to 90 days of consciously and consistently putting the effort forth of ask yourself, like, what is that new action or habit that version of me with my goal achieved would have? Let's put that into the tracker. And let's start to actually do and be that every day. And so I know that for some people will be like, oh, habits, boo. And it can change your life. So change your habits, change your life, because the best version of you is just waiting for those old habits to scuff off and the new ones to come forth so you can have all that you've asked for. And so I dare you to give it a try and just see what happens. For a lot of our clients, they actually say it's one of their favorite things, that it's made the biggest difference for them. And also they started to realize like how much they actually do. And they realize they're their own worst critic, and they actually see all the things they do in a day, and it actually starts to build up their self-image. And when you start to keep your promises to yourself, things start to shift. So go ahead and grab that habit tracker. We have mastermind mixers, free events every quarter to network and mastermind, as well as quarterly free workshops. And all that's on ownitempire.com. And just come and get connected with us. And we would be happy to support you to make your dreams come true.
Fantastic. We will link that in the show notes. And I have to know, what does gutsy mean to you, Miss Heather?
Gutsy to me means being brave, to go out to dare greatly, as Brene Brown would say, and to be willing to do what it takes to create a life you love and be comfortable being uncomfortable. Even though probably 90% of the population is going to not be on the same journey as you, maybe try and pull you down, and you might have to carve out your own road. It's going to require serious guts and willingness to create that life you love. And so for me, it really means being brave and willing to do what it takes to create a life you love.
Amazing. I couldn't agree with you more. Heather, thank you so much for sharing your radiant energy and your depth of knowledge. So knowledgeable. I feel like you just got like stacks of books in your brain, my love.
I do.
Yes, it's brilliant. So thank you for sharing so many incredible resources with us and being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Heather has so graciously shared so many free tools and resources, so I've linked them below in the show notes. And if there was something really powerful that really stuck with you or inspired you from today's episode, then I would ask if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps the show reach other amazing women just like you. You can connect with me on all social platforms using @thatlauraora. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.